The Duke Lemur Center, one of my closest friends, a shout out to Erin Emke. Dr. Emke is the research manager. So at NC State, we partner with the Duke Lemur Center, and we have students today who are there right now studying the lemurs.
They're kind of weird looking, you know, because of the little round eyes.
They are. So one of the things we know is we are diurnal, daytime active, and many lemurs are active at night or nocturnal. So if you're going to be looking for food and partners and walking around at night, you want to have really big eyes to let in as much light as possible that's coming from that moon. So they have special development in their eyes, and they also have that thing like cats have, where if you know a flashlight or a car light hits a deer or something, there's that reflection that comes back at you.
Yeah.
So that's why they look a little strange. They're more distantly related than, let's say, monkeys and apes to us.
No, it says you unwillingly participated in circumcision rituals in Madagascar.
Yeah, so I'm kind of the dumb traveler, and I get in all kinds of situations. So
Me too, I love that.
Yeah,
though.
it is. It is really fun, and I heard you say that when you went to Iceland, you like to be off the beaten path. So basically, one of our guides who help us, our trackers who help us find the lemurs every morning, if we can't find them ourselves, said something like, "Oh, hey, you know, we're having a circumcision party," and I thought, oh, how cool! This culture has something similar to us. I was thinking somehow in my mind I was equating it to like a christening or baptism, and a party after. And so he invited me to go, and I thought maybe my colleagues, the other researchers, were going. But when it came time to go, I was the only person who hiked out of the forest and hiked down to the village. And it's a long story, but basically what happened is they put me in a seat, and almost touching my knees were two other seats. They brought these three children in one at a time, and they paraded them around on their shoulders. And I thought, oh, wow, they're going to show us, you know, they're going to say, oh, these are the children who were circumcised maybe today or yesterday. And then they introduced me to the doctor, and he showed me, like when we were in 7th or 8th grade, that little light blue dissecting kit, you know, the one you use in class?
Yeah.
And I said, oh, he's going to explain what he did. You know, my mind was in such a different place.
Like all the kids were happy and smiling and stuff, right? They
were
didn't know
on
what was about to happen.
Yeah, they were on the shoulders of their parents weren't allowed to be in there, but they were on the shoulders of their aunts and uncles, or their uncles. So they sat down, and they had on like a Western T-shirt, and they lifted it up, and I thought, I haven't seen many penises, but I think there's still foreskin on that one.
Oh.
And then in like 1 second, I was like,
my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Like, I almost jumped out of the chair, because I was the only one. There was only 2 chairs in front of me, and I was sitting in a chair. Everyone else was sitting on the ground, and I realized, oh my gosh, they're going to cut the skin, like, literally a knee's length away from me. And I really wanted to leave, but people were crushed up against me. And when you leave at something like that, you're really like rejecting the culture. So it was very difficult, but they...
Did you go,
ooh!
I do. I have
a son?
Yes.
Did you get him circumcised?
So we debated. I thought, why cut skin? You know, what's the point? But
I mean, when you see it like that, that would traumatize me. I'd say, let him have it.
Not the party. Not the party.
Whatever.
Yeah, but his dad wanted to. It's a long story because he was preemie, because I'm super old to have a baby. So he came out at 6 months, so they don't circumcise in the hospital. You have to go back like 6 months later. So it was surgery. So it was really difficult, but he is circumcised now. And but I did think back to that time in Madagascar, and they did 3 children in a row, and basically they just cut there was a bucket on the floor.
A bucket on the floor.
Some blood, like,
oh my God,
splurted
out.
All
right.
But wait, that's not the worst of it. What they do?
Wait, no.
They take the foreskin
right.
and they roll it up in a little ball, like you would take popcorn.
Like a booger?
Yes. And then they throw it up in the air like we could catch popcorn in our mouth, and they swallow it.
Oh my God.
Who swallows it? The uncle?
It's someone, like, I equated it to like almost like the Godfather that you would choose like in a Christian religion.
Oh my God, he's got tons of like baby nuts in his mouth.
Or hopefully only one baby's. And then if that imagery wasn't enough, they very slowly peel a banana and they bite a banana. So,
enjoy your breakfast, everyone who's listening.
Okay, do they still do that, or have they outgrown that tradition?
Yeah, so what happens, you know, when you're in these places that we exoticize, you think, did I imagine that? So maybe a year or 2 ago, I Googled it because I thought, did I like imagine that? And I didn't watch it, but I found a clip where they said something about circumcision ritual, like a tourist had been there. So they do still do that, and in many parts of the country. And so my guide, I remember I said, I will pay you if you circumcise your baby the first week of his life. I will give you money. But he said no, and he waited. In some of the villages, one of the ones I went to, they wait up to 7 years, depending on...
7 years?
Yeah.
You're like a full-grown man by then. That's messed
In
up.
parts of the,
It sounds like a wheel of.
in parts of the Philippines, it's not done in most parts, but still, in some remote areas, people wait till they're like 12 or 14.
No, that's too much. He's already hit puberty by then.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
no.
exactly. So...
Okay, and you've also chanted with, like, the Dalai Lama. You've broke bread with Mother Teresa. Like, this morning when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, is Mother Teresa still alive? She's like 1,000 now, but she passed in 97.
Yeah, I just was very, very lucky. When you study monkeys, for example, you have to go to, in the wild, you have to go to the place where they live. So that brings you into these really distant places. And one of the times I bought an around-the-world trip ticket. So, you know, it gives you like several stops along the way.
That sounds amazing.
They are, and they're not that, you know, as expensive as if you went to each place separately.
Right.
So I used grant money to pay for the Indonesia part of the trip, and then I chipped in for the others. So one of the places on the route I chose was India, and I've been there twice, and I've been incredibly lucky because the first time I got to see the Dalai Lama. He was came out of, you know, he was by himself for about a month, and he came out, and I got to see him, and then the second time I thought, oh, who are the most amazing people in the world? Mother Teresa. What are the chances I can see her? 0, but let me at least go to where she lives. And I researched it, and you can actually go and volunteer at some of her facilities. So I worked for a week at Calicut, which is literally the place for the dying and destitute. And every morning, very early in the morning, I'm from the Northeast, so Christians up Northeast are mostly Catholic, and they do a Catholic service every morning. And she would still kneel. They gave her like a little piece of 2x4 with a rug over it, but she would still kneel, and she was, you know, so old. So that was a neat experience too.
That's so wonderful. So when you sit down and have like dinner with friends at Applebee's, you really don't have a lot to compare with them.
Well,
You've all been hung out with Jesus. I mean, so, talk about.
well, it is tough because it's so different than my family. You know, are normal people who haven't left the country and stuff like that. So. But typically when you're at like NC State, you have people that have had similar experiences, so, you know, it's a little more relatable.
I mean, I would want to sit down for hours and talk to you about all these different things.
Well, Katie has a big thing. She has 5 fish tanks in her apartment.
Yep. It actually says in our lease we're not allowed to have any.
Really?
Yep, no fish tanks.
And now they
So you're a
know.
rule breaker. And you're like inbreeding fish?
Yeah, so they're called axolotls. They're like amphibians, and they're my roommate's boyfriends, and theirs accidentally like reproduced, and we got 2 of the babies, and then they grew up, and then we were gonna
What an accident! Huh?
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, we were gonna separate them after spring break into 2 separate tanks, but by the time we had gotten back from spring break, they had already, like.
How do fish have sex? They just swap fins, or like I've never looked it up on Google or anything. So
It's.
no, go
You
ahead.
should look it up.
Yeah, I am.
Just take some.